with Catherine Feeney on ABC Radio, Brisbane and Queensland.
And it is wonderful to have your company this afternoon. It's 25 minutes past 2. For a long time, your local priest or vicar, local religious leader more generally, has performed the role of a kind of community consultant, someone to talk to, someone to share your problems with, confide in. You know, back in the day before our understanding of mental health has evolved to the point it's at now, where psychology, psychotherapy have emerged as major health disciplines, and there are all kinds of qualified mental health professionals that you can talk to if you're in crisis. So, where does that leave religious leaders? And does faith enhance or challenge someone's ability to work as a mental health professional? And who do you see if you have faith and a mental health crisis? Nahum Kozak is a Christian psychologist with the North Brisbane Psychologists. Thank you so much for your time this afternoon.
You are absolutely welcome. Thanks for having me.
Is there such a thing as a Christian approach to psychology?
Look, I believe there probably is, although I'd say in my case, I bring being a Christian to psychology in the same way that it's just part of my identity. You know, like I'm male and I'm a male psychologist, and some people come, they want to see a male psychologist. Some people want to see a female psychologist. But some people are attracted to the idea of seeking counselling with someone who they know shares their values in a particular area. And that's one of the things I do.
How many people would come and seek out your service because of your Christian faith, do you think?
I'd say it would be probably about 1/5.
Oh, wow. Okay. Interesting.
So unless the rest of them aren't just saying it, because I'll often know someone will say, oh, yes, I sought you out because I knew that you'd have the same set of values that I would, and I really wanted to discuss this with someone who did share my values. Yeah.
When we look back in time, before a degree like psychology was a thing, it wouldn't be hard to see the role that a religious leader, say a priest, would play in the community that would extend beyond the sacrament. You know, they oftentimes were the counsellor, but without any of the kind of training that you might have today. And that's an important distinction in a way to make. But are there elements in your faith, your Christian belief, your value system that actually do help you as a psychologist, Nahum?
I think that Nahum as a psychologist and Nahum as a Christian work really well together.
Okay.
Because as a psychologist, whoever walks into the room, you're meant to show unconditional positive regard for them. As a Christian, you're supposed to show love to anyone you come across. That's like the bottom line. And if you don't do that, then you're not doing Christianity right. Yeah.
Okay. And what about then the teachings of the Bible? I don't want to assume that you take everything in the Bible as
Yes.
as fact. I mean, everyone's faith is their own personal journey and so on. But are there any contradictory elements of Christianity that do make it hard to work as a psychologist in some sense?
Not if I stick with that basic idea of I'm here to show positive regard to a person. Like I might have a disagreement. I might say if, for example, I'm a strong lefty and someone comes in who is from the Liberal Party, I need to be able to work with them just as effectively as anybody else. There are limitations on that would apply to psychologists as well. So if someone tells me about a crime they've committed or that they're about to do themselves or someone else harm, there are limits on, I don't say that's okay.
Let's talk about that. Yeah, right.
But yeah, there are limits on the confidentiality there. Would it help if I talk a bit about my own journey and how I came to do psychology?
That'd be really interesting.
Sure.
Please do.
No worries. Well, I grew up in a loving Catholic household, but that wasn't always readily apparent to me. My dad was a practicing alcoholic, and later on in the piece, he was also, so there's some difficult relationship there. Later on in the piece, he was also brain injured. He had an acquired brain injury when I was 13. And so I became a very, on the surface, I was very happy. I went to that place of trying to show I'm the hero. This family is okay because I'm getting good grades and I'm trying really hard. Whereas you can't fix a family. But kids, we always try, we always think it's something to do with us and there's something we can do to fix it. Anyway, of course, that strain kind of all caused me to kind of fall apart eventually. You can't be so angry underneath and on the surface trying to have everything perfect for a very long time. And so that came for me when I was in the second year of university. And I broke up with someone I've been going out with for about 7 months. I failed a subject in university. This was horrific for me because I was like, where is my perfect record of academia, where I was getting a lot of my identity from? And around the same time that just my world felt like it was falling apart, a friend's mum said, oh, look, hey, do you want to come on this camp? There's a Catholic camp coming up. It's at the beach. And I was like, at the beach?
Okay. I'm in. Bring the sunscreen.
I'll come along. That's right. And I had it, it was a great time. There was lots of singing. There was like talking about Jesus. There was like going to the beach, very importantly going to the beach. But one of the things that happened was I had this conversation with someone. And have you ever found someone that you just click with?
Yes.
Yes. Someone you feel like this person understands. This person won't judge. And just like I had the most, if I had a shell or a mask up to that point with this person, I was just like, he said, I've noticed that sometimes you're a bit withdrawn. I noticed, what's going on for you? And I just went, wow. 4 hours later, it was the most open that I'd been with anyone in my life in that conversation. And he just at the end, part of me was waiting for the other shoe to drop. Part of me was waiting for him to go, well, pull your socks up. Just, get it together. Like, why aren't you in control? But he just at the end was like, is that what's going on? Okay. Is it okay if I say a prayer for you? And I'm like, hey, look, I don't know if it does anything, but if you want to pray, go for it.
Yeah, right.
And so he just said a really simple prayer, dear Jesus, thanks for this conversation with Nahum. And I know that you have a plan for his future that is full of hope. And that just blew my mind. Like it blew my, however old I was, 19-year-old mind, that there was potentially this hopeful plan for the future. And that you can be vulnerable and share your most difficult parts. I almost had no choice because it was just spilling out of me from being a closed book before that, and have acceptance and warmth. And the reason I'm kind of going there in this story is that was an introduction to two things for me. So before then I was born in a Catholic family, but it kind of was just, a thing. Mm-hmm. Also my dad's Czech, so I'm half Czech, and it's just a thing. But that was I've been looking in getting good grades and in getting into relationships to be the answer to, I haven't checked out actually my own faith that I'm born into. And so I started a period of experimentation then, journaling, dear God, I had a really crappy day today. What's with that? And just being really honest. I think before then I thought you had to be kind of formulaic and kind of, a bit impressive to God in your prayers, when really I think if there's a God there, I think God can kind of hack us being our genuine selves. So that was one thing that happened, was I started to explore my faith journey. And the other thing that happened was, just on a purely human level, someone heard where I was vulnerable. Someone saw me, the fig leaf fell away. I was very much naked and accepted me warts and all. And so you see how those two things kind of came together at the same time in my life. And it doesn't bug me that people see them as separate things. People who just see that human element, that's psychology would back that up, that if you experience warmth and acceptance when you share something that you're vulnerable or heard about, then you have a sense of intimacy and connection, and that's extremely valuable. And that's where the healing can kind of start. And I don't, for me, that just happened to come at the same time as this other thing where actually I have not properly checked out my faith. What is the deal there? Anyway.
Talk about revelation. You're on ABC Radio Brisbane and Gold Coast, and you're joined by Nahum Kozak, who is a Christian psychologist. It's Monday, and we like to focus on mental health on Mondays, after the weekend. Makes sense. It's 25 minutes to 3. I'm Catherine Feeney. Christian psychology, I think, is really interesting. Who do you turn to then when you need help in a time of crisis, given that you've said there's two things happening here, my faith and my, professional career, but they're also one and the same. So who do you turn to?
Sure. Whoever will listen. No. I'm really blessed to have a very close, open relationship with my wife. We know everything about each other, and she's still with me despite that. Hi, honey. So she's one of the people that I'll turn to if I need to talk something through. There are professional limitations around that, like with the amount that I could confide from, Nahum as a psychologist. And what's a really good thing around the profession of psychology is that there's an expectation of a level of supervision that you'll undergo, and that you'll take, difficult cases or dilemmas or things that really rock you to supervision in one form or another with another psychologist. And it's built into our conditions of registration that you have a certain amount of this going on. But for me personally, I'll do the things that I recommend to people. I've stuck with the journaling. Sometimes I'll put it in the bin straight afterwards, but it's out. I've got two mates who are really close. They're really good buddies, and I'll catch up with them once every fortnight or so. And as it happens, one of them is a psychologist, and one of them is now almost a psychologist.
Wow. Birds of a feather.
That's right.
What about God?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's all. When I do journaling, I do it kind of like a letter to God. Still, after whatever that was, 20 years.
Maths on a Monday. Let's not.
I know. Let's not do it. But yeah.
And what about people who have? I mean, we often talk about going to see a psychologist if you're in the grips of a mental health crisis, or if you need some extra support. There are many reasons, but let's stick with this idea of crisis because it's so readily reflects a common problem that people of faith have, a crisis of faith. Are you better equipped to help people, Christians who are struggling with their faith, deal with the psychological aspects of that? I mean, they might readily go to a church leader, but maybe their crisis of faith is because of the church.
It can be sometimes. Because sometimes we have this idea that the church is an institution that is inspired by the Holy Spirit and all that kind of thing, but it's made up of people too, and we stuff up, and so sometimes we can get hurt in church. We can get hurt anywhere, I think that's part of what can be attractive. That I'll understand the terrain that they're talking about. And that can be a really helpful kind of thing. I won't, if someone is in the throes of a crisis of faith, it's not up to me to solve their crisis of faith, but to help them through their journey, however that's going to play out for them. Because I'm called to be a psychologist, and I take that really seriously. It's not up to me to make decisions for people. Like I don't know what that is. I won't say mind control, but it's I'm there to help, and that's it, kind of thing. Yeah,
it's really interesting work that you do. So do you think, I guess in closing, you obviously derive great personal value from your faith and satisfaction from your career, which is kind of ultimate, right? We want to feel satisfied in the pursuits that we have. Do you think that your religious belief helps your mental health?
Absolutely. I think if we go back to that period before I had that conversation with a guy at a Christian camp, and after that I had a whole set of skills. You can have writing therapy, like that's a process. Like what I'm doing is journaling can be called writing therapy also, or if I stop and just meditate on the beauty of the world around me, like that's now we call it mindfulness and stuff. You see my problem because like there's so much that I see is just together. But yeah, definitely. And there's like I think all of us are probably aware of like we get hunches or we have an awareness, oh, hang on, I think this is the right thing to do. Like, and I might call that the Holy Spirit. And that happens fairly regularly. But I was talking with a good Buddhist friend who says, oh, I call that fulfilling my Buddha potential.
Wow.
And I think, I've spoken with people who don't subscribe to a particular faith journey and they're like, I just call that having a hunch. And if I follow it up and it seems good, then, it was a good hunch. Yeah, I don't know if that answers your question.
It does.
But, okay,
That's
good.
Beautiful. And I'm glad you mentioned Buddha because it's Buddha's birthday. So
happy birthday, Buddha. Awesome.
Now we're out of time for today, but thank you so much for dropping by to bring your perspective to our mental health conversation this Monday.
I'm really appreciative that you brought me in. Thank you.
Thank you. Nahum Kozak, Christian psychologist with North Brisbane Psychologists, and you can find out more about him online at North Brisbane Psychologists, all one word, .com.au. And just remember, help is out there if you need. You just have to reach for it. You can call Beyond Blue on 1300 224636. And the number for Lifeline is 13 11 14. That's 13 11 14. You're on ABC Radio Brisbane and Gold Coast.